Well, I've been hearing a lot of mixed reviews about the new Halloween movie, but at least there's no way it's as bad as Halloween Kills, right? Right? What's up, everybody, and welcome to my review of Halloween Ends. After an entire year of speculation and countless fan theories, the final entry into the David Gordon Green trilogy is finally here. And my initial reaction?
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
Now, this is a movie that seems to be splitting the fan base right down the middle. You have some people hailing it as a masterpiece and really just loving how different and outside the box it is, while at the same time you have another group of people that are calling this an abomination and hands down the worst Halloween movie they've ever seen.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
To me, both of these statements feel just a little excessive, although I do tend to lean in one of those camps a little more than the other. Before I get into it, let me just start by saying, if you enjoyed Halloween Ends, then I am so happy that it worked for you. But for me, as a Halloween film, as the third entry into a trilogy, and as a send-off of two of the most iconic characters in the slasher genre, this was a complete and utter failure.
That's what the kids call epic fail.
By the way, this is a spoiler review. I will be going into some of the story beats here, so only continue if you've already seen the movie or you just really don't care about spoilers. As per usual, I'm going to start with the positives, because regardless of how I feel about this movie as a whole, to say it did nothing right, that would be a lie, and a disservice to all of you viewers and to the movie itself. One area I think it did even better than 2018, and especially Halloween Kills, is with the character of Laurie. One of my biggest issues through all three films is the writing, and that includes for Laurie's character. In 2018, as much as I enjoy that movie, I feel like it was a bit of a stretch that she was still this obsessed with Michael 40 years later. And even though she didn't have a lot to do in Halloween Kills, her dialogue in that movie was just so over the top and almost like Shakespearean. She just didn't feel like a real person. It almost felt like they were giving her Loomis lines.
The more he kills, the more he transcends into something else impossible to defeat.
And I don't know, while that worked for Donald Pleasance, coming from anybody else it just kind of feels awkward. But her character in Ends is easily the most human she has felt in this entire trilogy. And to me, it's her best performance as Laurie since H2O.
And that's what I call high quality H2O.
I actually really liked the opening scene of this movie with Corey as the babysitter. I thought there was some great suspense and tension building in that scene, kind of doing some music cues, tricking the audience into thinking like, oh shit, is Michael in this house? But then they hit us with this curveball and this kid falling from like 3 stories up, even showing us like this full body flail when he hits the floor. It is rough to watch.
What was that?
See? And to me, it at least set up what I thought was gonna be a much better movie.
Wrong!
Another positive is there's a nice use of Chekhov's gun here, kind of incorporating these elements and giving them proper payoffs. A big one was Allison's car muffler rattling throughout the movie. That was a fun little attention to detail, as once Corey hears that outside, he knows that Allison is the one pulling up to the house, and he can in turn frame Laurie for his death. And then another good example of this is that microwave that is shown early on blowing up food, which is then used later by Laurie to cause a distraction so she can get the upper hand on Michael. And then speaking of Laurie and Michael, I think the final 15 to 20 minutes here was the most enjoyable portion of the runtime, because unlike the rest of the movie, it actually felt like Halloween. When we finally got them facing off, I said, where the fuck has this been the last 90 minutes? Now, even with that being said, it was still way too little, too late, and it just wasn't the showdown that we as an audience or these two characters deserved. After 44 years of history between these two, this was, in my opinion, a weak final battle. H2O and Halloween 2018 definitely did it better.
Grandmother!
I think I can safely say that James Jude Courtney has become my favorite portrayal of the Shape. Not that this movie in particular did much to help that. Despite glaring issues with all three of these films, I never had a problem with the way that he played Michael. Just maybe the way he's utilized in certain movies. And finally, I do have to give them credit for actually ending the timeline. It didn't leave us on a cliffhanger or a tease for more movies in the future. Unless they pull some resurrection bullshit, this Michael is dead. Now, of course, there will be other Halloween films, but they definitively ended their trilogy. In fact, one of my favorite sequences were the shots of the different rooms at the end. This was a beautiful contrast to Halloween 78, where they were showing all the houses and you could hear Michael's breathing underneath it, like the evil is still out there. Here, all the rooms are shot during the day with the sun peeking in and no more breathing. I thought that was great. Now, as far as things I'm mixed on, first and foremost is the character of Corey Cunningham. Now, I didn't have anything against Rohan Campbell's performance. I thought he did a fine job with what he was given. But for this being the third part of a trilogy, it makes no sense to introduce a brand new character and make the entire film about him. Just imagine how Star Wars fans would have felt if we were with Luke Skywalker for 2 movies and then Return of the Jedi comes out and we spend 90% of the runtime with a different character. And not even like Han Solo or something. A character that we've never even met.
It makes no damn sense.
And if you think they learned their lesson sidelining Laurie in Halloween Kills, they didn't. But this time, instead of Laurie, they sideline Michael Myers and instead replace him with Corey. Seriously, Michael is in this for less than 11 minutes. The opening credits should have said, and a special guest appearance by James Jude Courtney as Michael Myers. I understand the idea of passing the torch, but they failed in the execution. Focusing on Corey would have worked a lot better for people if he was an established character in this timeline. Make him a student at Allison's school. Make him a neighbor in the first 2 movies. Fucking anything. If you wanted his turn to evil to have an emotional impact, maybe introduce him as a likable character before the final movie. And then the other thing I'm mixed on is the kills. If I'm not mistaken, this is the lowest body count of the entire trilogy, which seems like a strange choice to me. And it's definitely the lowest body count if you're talking about kills by Michael. 3. Michael Myers kills 3 fucking people in this movie.
Somebody's gotta get stabbed! Somebody's gotta get stabbed!
The only movie he has less kills is Season of the Witch, and that's because he's not in it. The reason I put this into the mixed instead of negatives is because there are a couple really good kills. First, we have that DJ that gets his fucking face smashed up against the table and then his tongue cut out by a pair of scissors. It is fucking gruesome. And the tongue rolling around on the record player, that's a nice touch. And then I thought the entire sequence at the dump was pretty fun. We have Corey chasing down these band geeks that were bullying him, and we get a gnarly kill with a blowtorch to the kid's face. But I hated the way they had it like out of focus and off to the side of the frame, instead choosing to focus on his friend's reaction. Nobody cares about that. Show us the damn kill. Well, now the moment you've all been waiting for. It's time for the negatives. And oh boy, are there some negatives. Now, as far as the story of Halloween ends, it's not terrible. I see what they were trying to accomplish, but just like Season of the Witch, it would have been a better standalone film. Like, go the anthology route and call this Tales from Haddonfield, the Corey Cunningham story. I would have enjoyed it a lot more. A movie about a babysitter that accidentally kills a kid, a town that turns on him and treats him like a monster, and watching his descent into madness is a fascinating concept. But the third entry in a Halloween trilogy isn't the time to take these risks. The final Halloween movie that Jamie Lee Curtis will ever be in isn't the time to take these risks, and it just doesn't belong in this franchise. I felt like I was watching a mix of Jason Goes to Hell and A New Beginning, and that's not a good thing, because clearly I don't like either of those films. Check out my ranking for Friday the 13th. Sorry, shameless plug. But seriously, why would you have Michael Myers in your final Halloween movie for 11 minutes? Call me crazy, but not using your franchise's greatest asset seems like a huge misstep to me.
That don't make no sense!
I don't know how they fucked it up this bad. All you had to do was land the goddamn plane. Stop trying to subvert our expectations. I don't know why every director thinks that's what they need to do now. Just give us 2 hours of fan service. 2 hours of Laurie, Frank, and Allison hunting down Michael, and you have some happy Halloween fans. Hit it, Season of the Witch.
Happy, happy Halloween, 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 happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock.
It just blows my mind how many people I've heard say, well, if you don't like Halloween Ends, that just means you want to see the same old Michael versus Laurie Halloween. And, yeah, I'm all for franchises taking risks, but in the final movie that they're gonna be together, I would have preferred to see Laurie and Michael be the focus of the movie. Crazy, right? This whole thing just feels like such a disjointed experience. It honestly feels like they just took 2 movies and like mashed them into one. I have a strong suspicion that they made the movie they wanted to with all the Corey Cunningham storyline, and they just kind of threw the Laurie and Michael stuff in at the end because it's supposed to be a Halloween movie. It just felt so tacked on at the end, and it rubbed me the wrong way.
And it just rubbed me wrong.
Initially, I thought we were going this route of maybe Corey bringing these victims to Michael to get his strength back up, which I was actually on board with, but instead we got like this buddy cop, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Batman and Robin where they're teaming up. And what's worse is they made Michael fucking Myers Robin to Corey's Batman in a movie with the word Halloween in it. They pretty much said, I know this is supposed to be Michael and Laurie's swan song, but fuck them. This is Corey's movie now.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
Plus, it just takes away from Michael being pure evil if he's willing to team up with somebody. I don't know, I hated this decision. Look, if you're gonna pass the torch to Corey, I get it. Michael can't go on forever, but not like this.
Not like this.
Also, if you're gonna be this bold with your story, at least have the balls to go all the way with it. Go all the way crazy. The worst decision they could have made with the direction they were going is killing off Corey, and that's exactly what they did. Corey gets killed in the 3rd act, making his entire arc pointless. In turn, making the first 2 acts of this movie pointless. Why did you waste our time setting up this new character to take the reins only to fucking kill him off? How does that make sense? How is that good writing?
Think about that. That's just dumb.
It's just painfully obvious from watching Kills and Now Ends that this team, David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, all these guys only had enough story to fill maybe 2 movies. And the worst part is, if you take the best parts of Kills and Ends and turn that into one movie, I think you have a hell of a trilogy here with Halloween 78, 2018, and a combination of these 2. Next, just to add to the reasons that I wish COVID never happened, COVID gave us this 4-year time jump. Originally, that was not the plan for this movie, but then they had more time to think about it, sit on it, and I guess they figured this was the direction to go. It was not. Like a year jump I could have lived with, but 4 years, it's too long and it creates too many holes in logic.
Why are we doing this?
The previous movie and this movie really set it up like Michael gets his strength from killing, which is a concept I love. But if that's the case, this dude would have been juiced at the end of Halloween Kills. So why did he go hide in a sewer for 4 years like he's fucking Pennywise the Clown instead of going on a rampage? Like, there's not even a mention of it. We're just supposed to be fine with the fact that he's been chilling in a sewer for 4 years. And if your justification is that he needed time to recover after the beating he took at the end of Halloween Kills, I can get on board with that. But I say again, did he really need 4 years? There are just so many inconsistencies that make this movie extremely frustrating. It's like they were all writing the stories remote or like in separate rooms and they just threw it all together. Like there's this one point where these band geek bullies break Corey's glasses, but then Michael chokes him and he goes evil, and apparently that fixes your vision like you're fucking Peter Parker. Come to think of it, that's not the only parallel this movie has with Spider-Man. Weird. Another moment that drove me crazy is near the end of the film when Allison walks in and she sees Laurie standing over Corey's body with a knife. And yeah, that's definitely a bad look for Laurie, but if Allison just looks down, she would see this guy's wearing a jumpsuit and he has Michael fucking Myers' mask with him. Like, goddamn, Allison, put the pieces together. There's also this moment where Michael like visibly perks up after killing this cop, and after that he's able to like lift this nurse with one arm and just stick her to the wall with a knife. Classic Michael. So it seemed like he was getting his strength back. Totally makes sense within the whole gets his power from killing context. But then just for like a plot convenience, he becomes a weak old man again when Corey, the 20-something-year-old that just got bullied by a bunch of high school band geeks, comes in and takes his mask from him. Yes, he actually wrestles Michael Myers to the ground and takes his mask like he's his older brother. This scene is such a slap in the face to Halloween fans and to the character of Michael Myers. What the fuck happened to that unstoppable killing machine that you guys just had a movie ago? Did you guys forget that you wrote this monster that took out an entire fire department and a mob of angry citizens on the same night? And now he's getting beat up by Corey? I just don't know who thought this was a good idea. It's like they intentionally put this scene in here to piss off Halloween fans. I'm not even exaggerating when I say my entire theater was either laughing their asses off, me, or in a state of shock with what they were seeing. I'm starting to think these writers hate Halloween as much as Rian Johnson hates Star Wars. And then speaking of Star Wars, I also think upon rewatch, Halloween Ends is going to be just such a jarring tonal shift compared to the first two movies that this isn't going to feel like a cohesive trilogy. Halloween 2018 and Kills definitely have their differences, but they also have a ton of connective tissue. It makes sense to watch them back to back, much in the same way it makes sense to watch the original Halloween and Halloween 2. To me, I just feel like Ends is the one that you're gonna have a hard time watching after Kills. All three movies in a great trilogy, a truly great trilogy, should feel connected, and it should make you want to watch them back to back to back, much like a Lord of the Rings or the original Star Wars. And that's just not the case here, at least to me. Like going forward, when I watch this continuity, it's probably just going to be Halloween 78 and Halloween 2018. As far as our cast, the acting was fine, but I had issues with every major character in this movie. First, as much as I loved how they wrote Laurie to be more human, why didn't they do this in 2018? Am I the only one that feels like they got her character arc completely backwards? Like, why was she obsessed with Michael, who had been locked up for 40 years, but then when he breaks loose and kills dozens of people, including her daughter, she just moves on and writes a book? Isn't that the time that she should want revenge and be hunting his ass down? Just imagine if they did her character in reverse and she was this normal mother and grandma, and then after her daughter gets killed, then we get this 4-year time jump, and now she's obsessed with Michael, and now she's this badass like she was in 2018. To me, that just makes way more sense. To keep going down the list of characters, it is such a shame how they completely wasted Frank. I love Will Patton as an actor, and he was set up to be a big part of this final chapter. The flashback at the beginning of Kills is easily my favorite scene from that movie, and it did a great job of establishing why Frank kind of holds himself accountable for Michael. I thought for sure that he was going to get a chance at redemption after accidentally killing his partner and letting Michael live all those years ago. But instead he's reduced to flirting with Laurie in the grocery store. And don't get me wrong, I love their chemistry, but he should have had so much more to do in this movie. Apparently all pre-established characters are just taking a backseat to Corey. And then this was the only time in the trilogy where I considered Allison to be unlikable. Like, she was honestly one of my favorite characters in the first two movies, but for some reason here they just revert her back to like some high school girl with a dumb crush. And even though Corey spent this entire movie sending out some major red flags, she just like hung on every word he said and spent the runtime going against her grandma, who actually loves her and wanted the best for her. And just for the record, I'm not saying her attraction to him is unrealistic, with both of these characters being like traumatized by these tragedies and kind of being outcasted for different reasons. I could totally see why she would be into him. But I didn't see much chemistry between the actors themselves. Their relationship progressed way too fast to the point where it felt unrealistic. Like, they had 2 dates, he told her he killed somebody, and then she was ready to leave town with him. What? And overall, I was just Really confused when the entire middle of this movie felt more like an emo love story akin to like Twilight than anything close to resembling a Halloween movie. Also, it would have been nice to get like at least one scene between her and Michael, like maybe she's not scared anymore, but instead she's yelling at him for killing her mom. Something like that could have been really effective. But again, this movie hates Michael Myers, so I'm not surprised we didn't get that. And since we're talking about it, hands down the most disrespected character in the movie is Michael, which just blows my fucking mind. What happened to this unstoppable, killing machine, force of nature from Halloween Kills? Did 4 years really turn him into this weak, pathetic, frail old man? Michael Myers doesn't make his first appearance until almost an hour into this movie. He's in it for less than 11 minutes. He has a grand total of 3 kills because Corey keeps taking them like he's Jason fucking Voorhees snaking kills from Freddy.
She's mine! Mine! Mine!
Corey beats his ass and takes his mask. He gets beat up by a 60-year-old Laurie Strode, and then he gets thrown into a car grinder. Fuck this movie for how they treated arguably the most iconic slasher of all time. I was not a big fan of Halloween Kills, which you can see my review for right up here. But at least that movie gave this man the respect he deserved. I will be ranking this entire franchise, and while I still have some thinking to do, I can tell you all now that Halloween Ends will be on the bottom half of that list. I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 10, which is truly heartbreaking, because I think this had all the potential in the world to be the best Halloween movie since the original. Well, that's gonna do it for my review of Halloween Ends. What did you think of this final entry into the David Gordon Green trilogy? Did you despise the direction they went? Or did you appreciate them for trying something so different and outside of the box? Make sure to tell me down in the comments below what you thought of this entry and what you think of this trilogy as a whole. Has this now become your go-to Halloween timeline? And if not, tell me what your preferred timeline is. Me and 3 friends do a weekly pop culture podcast called Culture Shocked. If you're looking for something to listen to, links for that will be down in the description. Please give us a rate, review, let me know what you think of the podcast. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and a subscribe so you don't miss any future content. I'm gonna go ahead and put my Halloween Kills review from last year up here, and I will put one of my Friday the 13th rankings right down here. And as always, evil dies tonight.